For more insights on the crisis, we are joined by Andrew Borene. He's an advisor for the Truman National Security Project Defense Council. And let's start with the latest developments. It seems as though perhaps the calculus is changing. It seemed like the Kiev government kind of immobilized, didn't know exactly what to do. Now they're starting to take action. Have things changed, do you think, at all?
Well, I think that the violence has certainly escalated in the past 72 hours throughout Ukraine, particularly in the eastern and southern regions. And I would add that the United States ambassador in the United States did call on Ukraine not to exert or move forward with violent confrontation with occupiers as they sought to de-escalate a situation. Undoubtedly, the increased violence does raise concerns.
Let me ask you about one of the things Nathan just talked about, this meeting, Putin, OSCE. Do you think much is going to come of that? Are you pinning any hopes on that?
Well, certainly the world community needs to pin hopes on that. The election on May 25th is certainly a legitimate election, and it needs to take place because people in Ukraine have a right to say what happens in their own future. There's significant concern about Russian influence on escalating the violence during the buildup to that election in an attempt to disrupt a lawful democratic process.
Sergei Lavrov in Vienna said holding further international talks would be going round in circles, is how he puts it. Is he right?
No, absolutely not. We could quote Winston Churchill, always better to jaw than to war. And with Russian troops on the border, I certainly think the Russians need to consider what would be the impact on the world community and Europe at large if they move forward with a conventional operation.
Now, let me ask you about the two narratives that we see. You know, the Russians say, hey, we're just there for the Russian-speaking people. We want to help them out. And then the West is, no, you're trying to disrupt this election. Do you think, A, that the election will go forward, and B, will it be disrupted?
We certainly hope the election goes forward. Unfortunately, if we look at the playbook that the Russians have been operating out of, if we used Crimea as the example, we can only hope that they see the costs of an annexation of a much larger area of territory. And I think those costs come from a prolonged irregular conflict that they would find themselves in Ukraine.
Let me talk about linking talks and elections. That's what the acting Ukrainian foreign minister appears to be saying. He's saying, look, if Moscow will have another round of talks and support the presidential elections, let's all sit down at the table. Let's work this thing out. Is that likely?
Well, the Russians have certainly made clear that they're not interested in further talks. It is unfortunate, as the world community has called on the Russians to honor earlier April diplomatic agreements from Geneva. If they had been honoring those commitments, if the world community could put enough pressure on the process, then I think we would see a successful election on May 25th and a potential de-escalation in the violence in Ukraine.
All right, Andrew, thanks so much for coming in. Certainly appreciate it.
Thanks.